Hello everyone, my name is Prakash Chandra Chipa. I am a PhD candidate at Machine Learning Group, Luleå University of Technology, Sweden. Today I'm going to talk about the research work accepted in IJCNN. The title of the paper is Domain Adaptable Self-supervised Representation Learning on Remote Sensing Satellite Imagery. And this work is about adaptation of self-supervised representation learning on remote sensing images. So let's get started. So in the recent time, self-supervised learning and the computer vision has been a huge success. And the primary reason behind it, it is able to learn the effective representations without required explicit human annotations and the supervision part. However, it required a large amount of the data, and the basic learning analogy of self-supervised representation learning has been related to generating the multiple augmented views using geometric and color transformations. So if we look at the common schema of self-supervised representation learning, it generates multiple artificial transformed views pass through the encoders and it learns the similarity between it. So majorly self-supervised representation learning has different approaches. It's like contrastive learning, knowledge distillations, and information maximizations. So with that, we move with the focusing on remote sensing imagery part. So before understanding the adaptation on self-supervised representation learning on remote sensing images, we need to understand how remote sensing images are different than the natural scenes. So natural scenes, it's like it is very easy to understand for a human, and in general, it has characteristics and this very much discriminative in the nature. When we look at the cat versus dog, it becomes very easy to identify and understand the differences. Whereas if we talk about the remote sensing images, so it is not very much obvious. So, and understanding the difference and explaining it is not very much easy for the human itself. So it does give a motivation that if we could learn the representations without requiring human annotations and the supervision part, it could be very much favorable to the remote sensing domain. So here we construct one hypothesis, which is about self-supervised representation learning can be adapted to remote sensing imageries without much customizations. And it comes with several questions. And the question about that in general, self-supervised representation learning and in natural scenes required a massive amount of images. So do we require a similar amount of data when we want to adapt the self-supervised representation learning in remote sensing? Secondly, majorly the whole concept of self-supervised representation learning is based on learning invariant features utilizing the transformations which are geometric or in the color space. So can we use the very same transformations on the remote sensing data also in order to learn the meaningful features? And the third part comes with the how effective the domain adaptation and the knowledge transfer it could deliver. So with that hypothesis, we design an investigation protocol where the very simple steps comes with to identify a couple of remote sensing imagery datasets, choose a self-supervised learning method, which is in this case is contrastive learning, and then examine the self-supervised domain adaptations in round robin fashion, which is a very simple way to understand how robust self-supervised learning could be when it is pre-trained on one specific source dataset and transfer the knowledge on other target datasets and repeating the same in a round robin fashions. So in order to understand it a bit more clearly, so we have three datasets. It's a UCMD, SIRI, and MLRS. All three are remote sensing imagery datasets. And we have two tasks. One is contrastive pre-training, other is downstreaming task. So how the investigation protocol looks like: at the first stage, we pre-train the model on UCMD dataset and transfer and do the domain adaptation and knowledge transfer on other two datasets. And we follow the very same procedure in a cyclic manner and investigate the trends about how well the domain transfer had happened, how effectively we learned the representations, which help us to get downstreaming task performance. With that, I move to a short discussion about the data sets we have used. So the first data set is MLSRNet dataset. It has 46 classes and quite many examples you could see. And the next data set is UCMD dataset, which has 21 classes and 2,100 examples. Similarly, the third dataset has 12 classes and 2,400 examples. So with these three datasets, as we explain the investigation protocol, we have made the experimentations. And talking about the actual contrastive self-supervised learning, so we have adapted the method from the contrastive learning paper. It's a SimClear, which based on the idea of to learn the similarity for the positive pairs, which are made of the augmented views of the same image, and learn the dissimilarity for the negative pairs. And all the experimentations, we have used ResNet 50 backbone. And so we have employed the contrastive learning, in fact, to all the pre-training procedures we have used here. So coming to the evaluations part on the domain adaptation and the knowledge transfers, we have designed to evaluate like as an obvious task, as a downstreaming task. So we have multi-class classifications on all three data sets as we have seen it. So the focus would be understanding the domain adaptations part, where the pre-training has been done in a source data set, and the downstreaming task has been evaluated on other target data sets. And also we will evaluate the self-supervised representation learning capability on the very same data set. Secondly, it is very much interesting to understand the label efficiencies versus self-supervised domain adaptations. So with this analysis, we will attempt to understand that how well the representation has been learned, which eventually able to reduce the label requirements. And the third would be the qualitative analysis in order to understand the performance of downstreaming tasks through using activation maps. With that, when we move to the result part, so here we talk about the first is MLRS-net dataset. So in this results, we compare the results with previous work done on this particular dataset. And this table talks about the methods, and it talks about the accuracy part. So here we could see that the last three rows for the our proposed method. So we have domain adaptation results, and we also has the self-supervised results for the same domain. And with the comparison, we could understand that using self-supervised representation learning, we are able to achieve improved performance over the previous work. Similarly, the trend goes with the UCMD datasets also, where we have significantly improved the performance when we use a self-supervised representation learning on the very same domain. And the result for the domain adaptation part is also very much interesting. With the third datasets, which has the 12 classes and quite a less examples. So in the case of self-supervised representation on the same domain, we have achieved comparative results with the one of the prior work, whereas the result for the domain adaptation has been comparable. However, it has been low than the one of the prior work it has been done. So now it's a time to understand the knowledge domain adaptation part, with respect to the label efficiencies. So it comes with the very first data set, and here we have quite a interesting trends to understand that all the self-supervised pre-trained model performing much better than the supervised ImageNet transfer learning methods. So we could understand here that SSL has been consistently performing better over the label efficiency comes down from 10% to 50% to the fully supervised settings. And secondly, we could understand that at the fully supervised settings at 100%, all three models seems to be better than the previous work. Similarly, the trends follow for the another dataset UCMD, where we could see a clear difference between self-supervised representation and the ImageNet transfer learning here also. So, and then when we move to the third data sets, we could see that there has been significant difference between the performance of supervised transfer learning versus self-supervised pre-training methods. So with this fact, we could understand that the label efficiencies has been consistently showing the outperforming in the domain adaptations when it is being done with the self-supervised representation. However, in this particular part of the presentation, we would like to understand the reasoning and the logic behind the outperformance of self-supervised representation learning domain transfers. So with the very with this particular example from UCMD datasets, so we could understand that self-supervised representations seems to be robust, and it is able to identify and understand the visual concepts of the input image. So with the attention map, we can easily understand with the comparative. If we try to have a comparative view with ImageNet, fine-tune and linear evaluations, where we could see the attention map has not been developed for the very visual concept present in the images. Similarly, when we move to the other data set, Siri, there also we could see an example of a highway, and the self-supervised representation learning for all three models, we could understand the attention has been very much legitimate to understand the whole concept of the visual of this given input image, whereas the ImageNet is partially either able to understand in the case of fine tune, and but in the case of linear evaluation, it seems to be a completely a failure. Finally, the similar trends we could see on the another data sets also, that so with this aspect of qualitative analysis, which clearly support us that why the self-supervised representation learning has been more effective in order to achieve a better downstreaming task performance in the case of knowledge transfer to other data sets and the same data sets in the both cases. So with that, we move to the conclusion part. So join down to the contribution part. So we define the contributions that we adopt the contrastive self-supervised learning for remote sensing satellite image domains, by formulating and examining a robust hypothesis where different data sets are investigated in a round robin fashions. Coming to the achievement part, so as we have seen the results that by applying the self-supervised representation learning in the pre-training part, we are able to improve the downstreaming task performance, and the result has been very much supported by the quality analysis also. And the finally future work for this, we could see that so far this work has been focusing on the downstreaming tasks of the multi-class classifications. However, it would be very much interesting to understand that how self-supervised representation learning can be helpful when we want to go for the more challenging tasks in terms of like segmentations and the detections. So with that, I thank everyone.